Hello ladies and gentlemen, back at it again with another review. This time we're going to look at KC and Koi. If it's too long of a video for you to watch, the gist of it is pretty much KC, really good individual players, good team fighting, but lacking in macro. Koi showing that they learned a lot internationally in terms of how they manage their side lanes, how they build an economy, and how they choose their fights, but lacking in the mechanical department. In terms of how everything went, in terms of how the players performed. These details we're going to be seeing in the games. We're also going to highlight the flaw of sometimes playing with the range support. That's why we see it less in less circumstances because of the nuances of how the map moves in between fights. Range supports can scale super good into games, but they can struggle keeping up with a very busy game in the in-between. When I say in the in-between is, of course, things that lead up to the objectives. But more on that when those moments come. Let's jump right into the game. In terms of this draft, right, in terms of where we are, in terms of the game, I think the main thing to highlight right away is the fact that, we have a situation where the Milio is picked into the Lilia. Yeah, I've been there. Practically lost a job for it. In terms of where we landed here on blue side, I do think that the strength of Yunara is something that we can discuss. This champion is performing so damn well and competitive. Looking at the stats, most of the losses occur when either the itemization is piss poor or, plain and simple, it is a way weaker team playing against a way better team. In terms of the weighted win ratio, the read on this champion being super strong, I was unsure. I think the teams that rolled out with first picking this champion right away were very right. The mobility makes sense. I think in terms of the damage output, I think it's very clear the difference between how players use their W and how they use their ult. Some players use ult on first contact and then get kind of kited out. The best players, they hold their ult and they get a lot of value out of their Ws, the bolas that they throw out. And if you do with that slow, I think you have the capacity to stick onto targets. And when you do, I think the damage output is absolutely crazy on this champion. Another detail that is very important about Yunara is that she actually lanes well and pairs together with most supports. The fact that she's so strong level 1 bleeds into level 2 and 3, and that initiative can let you swap out of lanes, can let you choose to match lanes. It gives you so many options in the early game. Like Gumiyushi said, bot lane right now is not only just an egg in the ramen, but it's also the water that the noodles get boiled in. And setting the temperature just right with a strong early game is of course super important. Let's take a look at this game now. I think the main thing to highlight from the get-go is how good of a laner Kana is. I think it's such a big advantage for KC. How good Kana is in the lane phase. There's many moments where he just spaces Midwin in terms of how he uses his Q and E. He still gets the CS numbers and is not under a lot of pressure in the early levels as Rumble. He makes very good educated decisions of when to trade HP and when not. And I think he gets so much value out of his W. Another little detail that he did, for those who don't know, Rumble players, they go for glowing motes and then they just spam E to get the rage bar up that I'm highlighting right now, but you see the kind of rage bar. With that ability Ace, you can stack it up a little bit higher and then he just refunds them and goes into Doran's ring, and it makes a little bit of a difference to be able to stack it, and then you start with a rage bar, which of course increases your damage, which is kind of neat. But we can move all the way forward here. I think these sequences of trades are the ones that are the most important. Kana's going to land some very important E's here, and he's going to dodge Mirren's abilities, and that's the nuance of the matchup, right? Can you hit your E's? Can you dodge the poke? Can you stay healthy as Rumble and attack Mirren's mana pool through it? Even here he squeezes one through the wave, very cheeky. And then the contest, of course, for level 6 is something that Kana fights for. He moves forward, and then the abilities of Mirren here are going to miss. Kana makes sure that he never is in a position where he gets Q'd and E'd, together with the wave. He's always making Midwin choose. Kana then pushes forward, hits the E on the W of Midwin. He doesn't juke it even with the dash. And then Kana here with the level 6 swing timer in a matchup that should be very winning for Aurora creates this beautiful opportunity for, of course, Kana to come and dive. Kana goes past the tower to harass Mirun one more time without taking a turret shot and cancelling a recall if it happens, and then he starts hard pushing here to make sure that Mirun feels forced to instantly TP. Looking for the cancellation, Yike gets it with beautiful timing, and then Aurora here gets dove in the matchup. A lot of sequences that occurred in the game, but the main thing that Koi want to accomplish, of course, is to just leverage the stronger side laning. That's like the only real advantage that they have. Obviously, with Milio and Skarner, it's hard to be super active, because if Skarner is showing, the threat of Milio in, for example, a Rumble lane is non-existent, right? It's like if I'm playing Aurora and the Rumble and Milio's in Fog of War, I don't really care. And that's one of the flaws of Milio, is that there are pairings that Milio is very good with. For example, Azir is a great example, and is really good into Lilia, and it scales super well into the team fights. But in the in-between, Rumble is always going to be, weak-sided, and that can be tough in certain circumstances. KC do the correct thing of just opening, of course, on Vladdy's lane, but an additional detail is that diving the Yone is something that is very difficult. So when you have these positions where the map is imbalanced, the question is always, what can you do and what can the enemy do? It's much easier to pressure, of course, the Rumble with 2 against 1, 3 against 1 than it is for these champions on blue side to pressure onto, of course, the Yone, as long as it remains healthy. And remaining healthy is quite easy with Blade and, of course, Fleet Footwork. So that's also a detail that you can highlight in terms of how much pressure you can do. Rumble's trying to loop around, he's getting chunked, and of course, Leoya here and Mirwin, they are pressuring the turrets as much as they can, while Georgipion feels safe to stay under the tower. Aphelios is just, Alistar is just hovering, while Aphelios is basing, and this imbalance here is something to highlight, The parts of draft, of course, reaching the point where team fight is super important, but how you manage the in-between is a question of how much resources you generate, how much gold you generate, and also additionally if you can be first into positions, because obviously if the enemy is pressuring your turrets 30 seconds ahead of the spawn, you can't be giving up tier 2s, whatever, for a dragon that won't necessarily increase your power. So if the enemy leverages that and you have to limp into dragon fights, obviously you're going to be at a disadvantage. And that's a nuance that I think sometimes people miss. People talk about, oh, this champion in a vacuum against this team comp should be really winning. But how does it manage all the other details of the game? Sometimes that champion that scales super well into the enemy comp can break the game, but you need to remember how much do you need to give up to actually put that champion into team fights. This right here is a very clever angle here from KC. I think the main thing to pay attention to is that even though the gold is dead even, you have to pay attention to the economy of the game. Here at this point you have Yonara with that 1 kill gold is ahead of Aphelios, he doesn't have IE. Obviously Yonara's item is also a little bit cheaper, and she bought Cull. Cull has very good synergy with Yonara because of how the Q works, but nevertheless. Right now Aphelios is sitting on gold, and at the same time Yone is being very greedy because he wants to base on shield boy. He has 2.9k. So KC recognized this and they want to force a fight. This is a very clever use, because theoretically right now if there was a fight occurring, you could say that KC is like 5k gold ahead, 6k gold ahead. Gold in the bank is gold not spent, and that's not power that is going to, of course, increase your chances of winning. An additional detail here that shouldn't be taken for granted is the fact that Milio is also a lot richer than the Alistar. Milio is sitting on redemption, and this type of an item can really swing a fight, because that healing and that true damage can be super massive. So I really like KC's decisiveness. This is going to be a common line, is that they understand when they are stronger and they are willing to take those fights, and they're okay through that, hoping that mechanically they can outperform people, which is a recipe that often works for KC. I feel like in the team fights and in the lane phase is the only place where KC look really comfortable. Rumble isolated against the Aurora. Here Yike mechanically misplays by not releasing his Skarner a little bit earlier, because CCing Ilioy here in a chain should be entirely possible. Maybe he didn't pay attention to the fact that Mercs are bought. Otherwise, I think this should have been a very good fight for KC, where they kill Ilioya and they create a counterbalance. Kana falls asleep. Emilio's going to keep everybody alive. They manage to get out the Khan. KC walk away. And snap TP into bot lane to try to get some gold back, while the rest of the Koi players cancel the recalls. This moment in the game is very crucial for KC if they want to actually contest the dragon. Here you're going to see that Milio and Skarn are open on the mid wave, but the issue is that the Yone pushed the wave so deep and has full information on bottom side. If Azir is playing in isolation, it's going to be very awkward for him to actually connect with his teammates. So what you want to see from YamatoCannon here to actually retake the jungle and go behind Azir, because if Azir can't push this wave and wait for the next one that is coming, he's not going to be able to connect in a smooth way. They open here on the mid wave, but the mid wave is, you know, like here, them being around mid really doesn't make a difference, while in reality, Vladi is feeling really uncomfortable. Imagine a situation here where Skarner and Milio is going behind Azir right now, and he feels good enough to, of course, slow push and be on this wave, which is rather close to his base. And Yonara could just simply open on mid and judge based on the base timer of the enemy that they noted from before, if she's in danger or not. Because even in a world where they get prior on that, if the Yone feels safe to kill this wave, then they'll have to start all the way over, because this mid prior doesn't matter if you can't push this wave. So here, Milio and Skarner, imagine a world where they walk behind them, they push this wave now, and then they connected, and then they were, you know, ready to play on this wave, then it would be very different. Because as you can see here, Yone now is going to E, take this wave very deep, and now they're chasing after him like, you know, headless chickens. And Azir doesn't want to hurt, of course, his economy. He wants to not lose CS. It's very important that Azir farms. And Yone, just because he gets to push these deep waves and Azir not allowed to connect, they're going to lose position for the dragon. Milio recalls to get refreshes wards. And as you can see here, even though blue side should be, you know, a better teamfight composition, the fact that Azir limps into the fight and they have to face check this area makes it a lot harder to, of course, contest. Taking a lot of hits from the Aphelios turrets. And in the end, MKOI get the dragon. MKOI looking for the game winner, and I think if the execution was a little bit better here, I think they could have gotten something out of it, but it is what it is what they say. It is what it is. Next crucial point in this game would be this moment here. Once again, pay attention to the economy of the game. This 1.2k gold is way bigger than anything really, because once again, look at Yone. He doesn't have IE, no LDR finish, while Yonara's on 3 core. Zeke's Armguard is also a very powerful item. You also have, of course, you know, just the biggest spike here with Yonara is so massive, and it matters super much. And KC are going to do the KC Classic. We're going to just open into the Nash area and not let Yone create a circumstance where he pushes really deep and they need to defend. They want to force his TP out. They want to make him join the fights when they have position. And the best way to do so is, of course, to hit Nash. And this is a composition that hits Nash very well. Milio even adds a lot of damage with the W. Look at the vision here from the enemy side as well. Yone pushed a neutral wave bot, doesn't have anything real to TP on. And the fight commences. The Rumble ult onto the back line. Smite battle is not won by Leoya. And Targamas gets 200 yeared. It's been a while since we saw one of those. Let's head to game number 2. So in this game, looking at the draft, right? Side KC, it looks like they have a nice teamfight composition, right? But in terms of the synergies in the in-between, KC's gameplay loop is going to be very predictable. Jinx and Lulu should be allowed to push on mid waves. If they lose mid towers, it's a very, you know, grave problem, because they are not going to be able to walk on them, and then Talia can cut them off with the Pry on side. Annie and Xin Zhao should play full on side, where Xin Zhao just shadows Annie, and then they play away from the Sion side. This is a good game plan, but also a predictable game plan. The main issue here, right, is that Rakan can play a dynamic game. Lulu being in Fog of War is only really relevant with Xin Zhao. So Lulu and Annie, the odds of them pulling a gank off together, being useful together as a duo, is not really relevant. You can't do dynamic gameplays where, for example, you send support onto, let's say Rakan goes onto Talia lane, they gank, let's say, the Annie and kill her. That's not something that you're going to see that often with a Lulu Annie as a pairing. So your options are far more limited for KC. They want to farm, they want to defend, they want to play Sion weak side, and that's their whole game plan pattern. While MKOI can be dynamic with Rakan, with Poppy, they can play onto Ambessa side, onto Talia's side, they can isolate Sivir on mid, let her just clear waves. The options, of course, are immense. A big crucial moment in the game that really opened things up was this moment in time where Taliyah basically has a tempo advantage on mid, pushes out, Xin Zhao is then here pretty much just in river. Elioya is matching, he's stepping into river, and we're going to have this circumstance where Jojo Pyun and Elioya want to collapse on the bottom side. And if you take a look at the VOD of the game, there was a moment where basically got a little snapshot from the mic check, and Alvaro had the expectation that Taliyah would come with the wall, but Jojo Pyun here was nervous that Yike would cancel him. I think that in terms of his range as well on the ult, he's not quite there yet. You could just ult through, right, because Yike doesn't have any way to cancel, and they should find ways to play together. But Koi really overforced the situation, and they are looking with the coordination of Taliyah. I think Alvaro's judgment of the range is very good. Obviously, in this moment, if Jojo Pyun ults, maybe there's something to be done here. Maybe someone is a loss, but instead we have a situation that turns into, of course, a crazy disaster. Leo flashes over the wall, tackles Yike flashes, and Kalis here off of the flash, just all in super, and then the reset happens too, and Kalis gets a kill. Seems to me as if this game should be completely over off of this only. Let's take a look at why it wasn't. There's the Tibbers as well. This is a great moment to highlight, KC in terms of how they manage their economy, because here in the lane assignment, they're sending Jinx into top because they want to play for the grubbies, and Lulu is delayed on base. Here I think Kana should actually soft contest this wave and make it difficult for Midwin to actually crash this. If there was a way for Lulu to base earlier, she should have. Not so sure if she could. I think they kind of extended the play here, and Jinx was already on base, so Lulu is basing after. Here I think that Kana should stick around a little bit longer and potentially just contest Midwin on the wave here so she doesn't get to clear it. Here there's no rush for him to recall because Midwin is in the same tempo spot as Kana. Obviously here Vladi is staying because of the condition of Taliyah. He's going to catch his cannon as well. So the rush here for Kana to base is not necessary. I think he can contest this a little bit longer, stay with Jinx, basically be the support here, and then channel the recall. And I think that this situation would be a little bit smoother. He doesn't contest the wave, Meruem takes it in front, and here Kalis is in isolation and Lulu is opening on mid. Lulu's opening on mid, which means that Jinx can't walk on the wave because Ambessa's in fog of war, and Lulu has nobody to play with on mid. And for some reason here, after, of course, Vladi catches this wave, we have this type of a lane assignment, where Kana is in mid, Jinx in isolation on top, can't contest the wave, and Lulu, Sion are together on the mid wave, which is very awkward. I think Xin Zhao could have caught the mid wave that Sivir was pushing before, Sion could have been here, and then they should connect together, and then after pushing one wave, let's say they push this wave, maybe they transfer themselves into mid, and then, of course, Sion could take over bot, and all would be good in the hood. But instead we have the situation now where Vladi stays for one more wave, which is very bad, because Taliyah now, it works because he has TP, so it's fine, it's not that bad. I can take those words back. Taliyah though has a better tempo, and she's already on this wave pushing, and they're trying to find this fight. But look how isolated Kalis is. He has to walk all around the world, he has no visa in his own jungle. Like this is terrible, right? And I think this comes from before with the lane assignment, how they set things up. I really like the fact that MKOI are capable of soft contesting. Here, they aren't necessarily looking for a fight, but they're looking to make it as big of an investment as possible for KC to actually commit into this area. Taliyah is getting a lot of farm, and Ambessa is stealing the top wave. This is very costly if you consider, of course, the tempo of the game. They have 5 people grouping, Sivir is pushing mid wave, Ambessa is on the top wave, and also Taliyah is getting plating on bot. Getting these grubs is a big investment, and let's be honest, hitting tower isn't going to be super realistic for, of course, KC. So Jinx bleeding farm, Annie bleeding farm is a very bad prospect, because as the game proceeds, right, you're going to see that gold gap that was caused by those 3 kills is just going to disappear completely. Super gets the BF sword base, and Taliyah keeps pushing the bot waves. Here we're going to have a very important detail where, as I mentioned before, the game plan for KC should be that Xin Zhao lands on Annie's lane, or they contest hard on midwave S3 because Lulu Xin Zhao has synergy, or Xin Zhao just goes behind Annie, and if they all in on Taliyah or, of course, the Ambessa, The target access should be very easy for Annie with, of course, her E, and then look to stun, and then Xin Zhao goes, especially now Xin Zhao is basing for a very, very powerful item in Sundered Sky. Here, there's a small mistake that Yike does that delays him big time, is the fact that he opens on his chickens. So in this moment, if he opened on golems and then went chickens, he's going to be able to cross into Annie's side a lot quicker. But instead, he does his chickens here, and then he's going to step back and do golems. And the delay for him to be on this wave is going to be so big. Take a look now. He's now on the mid wave. Ambessa's on the bot wave. He could be here already. Instead, he did the zigzag motion, and in terms of how his camps are going to respawn for the future, is also going to be worse. Because he wants to land on, of course, on the Annie side. Let's just keep playing this. So they take over river, that's fine. Ambessa's on the boat wave, she has full info, of course, of Xin Zhao, and Vladi is contesting it, as he should. And now they're stepping into bottom side, which is cool and all. I think this sequence is good, I'm happy with it. Sion is being traded, Talia is pushing him out completely, and Poppy was also top. So you're just trading sides. This is a circumstance that KC should be very happy with. Here, I don't understand why Kalista is coming. I don't understand why Kalista is coming. I don't understand why Lulu is going all the way. I think they're looking for a play that is not going to happen, and they kind of ruined their own positioning and tempo by looking after this dive. When they don't have info on Poppy, don't have info on Rakan, I think it's safe to assume that they are defending the bot play. Especially because like Sion gets pushed out, Poppy recalls, Rakan is in fog of war, he's going to show bot. There's no reason to chase ghosts here. The point is, you want to create enough leverage that the enemy feels forced to defend, and then you want to proceed into the next macro step. But here, Jinx is just walking into bot, hoping for a play that is just not going to happen. So KC, of course, lose traction here because Rakan, like Poppy, is coming out fresh out of base, and they manage to defend the play. And Sivir gets to get the mid prio. So it's a plating too, and this is quite awkward. Let's continue. Once again, we have the beautiful spellbook making another appearance. We talked about it in the previous review that we did, in terms of the tempo advantage being first on the map, Rakan based, and is now already in fog of war. This is going to take a lot of effort to retake, and Rakan is first into the play on top, first into play on mid, and he can refresh wards and also proceed into the next step of the game, which is of course going to give a lot of breathing room for Talia, because if Talia has vision, she can push against anyone. And if you secure that vision, suddenly Rakan and Poppy are very, very free to be creative. They can still go top and maybe punish the Sion, but they can also get away from top and maybe defend the play, maybe look to trap in bushes. That tempo that you create is also a way for you to create more opportunities. That's why like basing and being on time is such a crucial aspect of the game, because the value of those opportunities is very hard to measure, and that's why sometimes it's tough to explain to players that basing is great. Taking one more wave, that gold you get, it feels, the dopamine hits hard, but it's not the way. It's really not the way. Alvaro put the vision, got a little bit of XP. Lioya and Alvaro is first into the area because they spotted Xin Zhao on bottom side on these wards that they placed before. They're contesting and marking, which means that, of course, Midwin gets to play his lane in isolation. Jojo gets to harass Kana super much too. And once again, I mentioned before, in terms of how the camp spawn, Yike now is pathing into top, but he should be pathing into, of course, the Annie, because that's the only way they really progress. And even though I say that, this is just the difficulty of the composition. It's like Sion was matched against the Talia. Sion was losing hard. So how much counter pressure you can create on Ambessa, you don't have really enough time to, make the trade even. So then you need to defend. And then if you're defending, it means that the enemy team is playing the lanes in isolation and they're going to make you bleed, right? So here in this moment, Vladi full sends it with a TP, but obviously it comes at a great cost. If this is not a successful fight for KC, this can of course be potentially game losing, but it looks like a good opportunity. Ambessa is matching, but of course for Ambessa this is a lot nicer because she pushed the full wave and Annie is going to lose those minions. So in this moment, Mkoi, they're a little bit too split. The TP position was very awkward for Midwin. Somehow they managed to get out. which is complete insanity, because Alvaro dying here, giving another reset would have been super insane. KC fully committed to that side, and Super was like, that shit's a bad fight. I'm hitting mid. I really like that Koi is, aware of the waves, aware of the circumstances, aware of tempo, and aware of where to get guaranteed value. I think it just showcases to me that, the practice at Internationals really paid off, and, it really makes a difference in terms of understanding the bigger picture. Elioya marking, which could have been very dangerous. Yike making the mistake of course, dashing through the rocks. Georgipion tries to Q flash, doesn't get the lethal because of the Lulu shield. Super ghosts, and finally, finds the lethal. And you see Vladi here looking to go on this awkward flank. Very strange fight. Not so sure about to say about, because I feel like it's first is Elioya making this mistake by looking to force here around the angle while he was spotted, and then it's just the pursuit here from Yike that makes it dangerous, but then he just survives with so low HP, and at any point they could have just accepted this play was over, but Vladi is coming through and he wants to put Tibbers down, but yeah, not much more to say about this play. A super important detail here though is the fact that they do lose mid tower. And from what we talked about before, if Talia gets to push freely on her side and she threatens in Fog of War, if Poppy threatens in Fog of War, Rakan threatens in Fog of War, there is nothing that is going to allow Jinx and Lulu to actually posture on waves or hit waves. So them losing this mid turret is insanely impactful, because playing a defensive game without your mid turret becomes very difficult. Let me illustrate on this beautiful map. There is a relationship between towers and what paths they kind of open up, because basically if you play defensive league, meaning that the enemy has prio and you have to catch the wave under the tower because you want the minions and so forth. The main detail to pay attention to is the areas of intrigue, the areas of interest, the points of interest. As the player that catches the wave, which areas can you still reach first while being the defensive player? So if this mid turret is alive, any fight that occurs in this area, even though the person has prio here, you have a shorter path. So usually this is a death zone, right? This is a complete death zone, right? The same way this is a death zone, and so forth, right? The relationship between the mid turret and the path you can go to, basically as a team that is blue side here in this case, if they want to progress the game, they have a better path, of course, into the top tower. That's why the outer towers always fall first. If we think about it a little bit further, it's basically mirrored on both sides. It's like the relationship between getting prio first, then being here, you go first into here. Obviously, if I'm trying to take this path into top, that is way longer, way longer. And that's why the outer towers fall first. And then the relationship between, let's say this turret is gone here, and I want to pressure into mid. If I push this wave all the way, right, because that there's no tower, and essentially I'm stronger. The same way, if I cross into here and I undermine the people defending as the wave crashes, the person catching the wave in this area has to loop all the way around. And that is the relationship between the turrets and the space it creates, just to make it super comprehensive so everybody's in the loop. If this turret is now gone, right? This turret is now gone. This still is kind of a death zone, right? It still is a very big death zone. But if this turret is gone, you have ease of access like this. You pressure the tier 2, and you have ease of access like this. Something that is unique about tier 2s though is the fact that from this position, you can still cut through like that and defend this with a pink. That's why defending this tier 2 is in a lot of cases a lot easier than defending the blue side tier 2 because of the ease of path here that this creates into the bottom tier 2. This tier 2 on the red buff side of your map, because the map is mirrored, is a lot trickier to contest because the defending team can easily cover this space because of this push here against Raptors. Usually like going in like this is just complete suicide, because as let's say the Jinx player is here catching the wave, everyone can be trapping in this area, and it's not quite the same here. But that's the relationship between towers. I guess we can add the final one just to just to be clear, you know, if these turrets downfall and the tier 2 is now gone and you manage to crash the wave all the way deep, then it's just the same in reverse, right? It's the same in reverse. They don't get to take this path to defend, which means they have to loop around, and then you get the point. You get the gist of it. And how that relates to the game. Obviously, now Jinx lost the tower. Jinx lost the tower. We have the economy in the toilet for the Annie, which is super relevant. We also have the Rift Herald, which allows you to open them up the map even more. Pay attention to how just MKOI play the map. Taliyah has vision on top side. She's going to take all the jungle here while Annie is pushing. She's going to catch one. She's going to ignore that pink that she just saw. Rakan is now hovering so Taliyah can push for free. And at the same time, Midwin is just farming the jungle camps. This is very like Genji pilled. You know, just make sure that you eat all your camps. Don't let them stay alive so you generate gold. And then make sure that you have enough vision so everybody can push their waves as deep as possible. If they have vision to play, it means that the jungle and support's job becomes, very freeing, because then you have options to trap ambushes. You don't need to hold anyone's hand to go all the way. Rakan hovers one time, which means that Taliyah can push the deep wave. And then here, Midwin is just waiting for information because he doesn't want to die in this spot. His team is playing topside. He sees Zinzao Lulu now. He can now walk on the wave and he can start pushing. Taliyah's pushing deep, taking golems. And now the tier 2 is going to fall because of the Rift Herald on the mid wave as well. Same thing extends to mid wave. Now, Super, with this turret gone, Jinx and Lulu, they're going to have a very hard time pushing on the mid waves. The access into this space here is also going to be super difficult. They need to find ways to break the game through side. But then again, I repeat, Jinx, like Annie, Lulu, Zinzao, the options that they have is very limited. They can do things as a trio, but with the vision that you can generate with the Rakan being so free to do whatever he wants, is going to make your proactive play very weak. So as long as Sivir and Taliyah and Ambessa push the waves as they come, Casey is not going to get any opportunities. And in that, you're going to bleed CS, you're going to bleed jungle camps, and you're going to generate more gold. So even though Casey's composition scales better, you're not necessarily going to be able to choose your fights, you're not going to be able to ever be in a better position, and every time you want to do anything proactive, you're going to sacrifice a lot of minions. So let's say Sion says, okay guys, I'm going to drop wave to look for a fight. First, that's going to be very predictable for MKOI so they can adjust to it, but additionally, you're going to pay the price of losing a tower, losing minion waves, and that, of course, is going to be, very painful in the long run. As we proceed, Rakan is hovering, he's making sure that there's always vision. Alvaro, super slippery, there's no hard CC besides the Annie on the enemy team, so he can always choose. He bases here to maintain tempo and to base with everybody else. Very nice synchronized base from MKOI. Yike finally finds the angle, but then again, this kill, how relevant is it really? So they get the flash out, they kill Taliyah, but first and foremost, there's no wave. Annie flashes, sorry, not Taliyah, Annie flashes. But the thing is, Rakan and Poppy, Sivir already in base, ready to push. They're already, have tempo here on bottom side. There's no wave here for Vladi to leverage into something. They can, for example, push this wave out and base and then step into bot side. That could be a play. But then, of course, MKOI, all they need to do is judge the next wave and see if Vladi actually hits. Well, here I think Vladi not basing, I don't know if it's related to his gold. I think he needs to base and actually just step into bot side to actually defend this play. Because the enemy is so much faster, and the fact that Vladi is top here with Annie ult used, even though he has TP, him TPing into a situation here because of the tempo advantage with Zinzao basing so late, doesn't matter. Let's see how this plays out. So Rakan now puts deep vision, makes sure Ambessa can play. Argamas and Kana and Yike, they are in this area. Alvaro is very slippery with the Rakan, he knows the limits of the champion. The Annie showing here and the Jinx showing here gives them full freedom, of course, to play here. I'm just thinking in a world where if Vladi matched base with Zinzao, they could actually step into here a lot more aggressively. And they could actually maybe look for a potential fight, even though Annie doesn't have ult. I think it would probably be the best bet that you have, because now Annie focused on her own economy, didn't base, and the number advantage wasn't used at all, while MKOI just progressed with the game continuously. Sivir gets to push the wave super far up because she has full info because everybody got spotted here, and Ambessa keeps pushing and they get the tower top. Talia TPs, she still has this pink ward, beautiful pink. Talia knows that Annie based, so she's very safe on this wave. There's no way for Zinzao and Annie to teleport up here, right? Pro players always need to judge real time how long it takes for, let's say, Annie is showing bot. Then she's like, oh, if Annie recalls in Fog of War instantly and then walks top, I have 25 seconds. When someone goes into Fog of War, it's kind of like a heat map that expands. It's like it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then after a certain amount of time, theoretically, the Annie can be anywhere if she stayed long enough in Fog of War. But if she, like it's the same, like if in the past, season 1, 2, 3 League of Legends, like if your mid laner pinged miss, you would just instantly bolt it and run. But then reality is like, oh, I have 15 seconds to play that I should use to maybe bait the mid laner to waste time, or like to actually get the wave that I should. It's not like he went into Fog of War and is going to TP into my forehead. Just a little, little anecdote. So Georgiopun pushes this aggressively. Rakan still back on his bullshit, putting deep vision. And Georgiopun is also in position to push the even deeper wave because Rakan spots it. He just recalls because he's not needed here anymore, and he's going to open on YamatoCannon. And Georgiopun is pushing so deep without the help of anyone, right? He's pushing golems, he's pressuring, and the potential for a Vladi to, of course, commit onto Georgiopun here is next to non-existent, because at the same time, they don't even know Alvaro based. Alvaro could trap the Annie with no flash. He could base, he could be trapping on mid-wave, he can go bot. He has so many options. That is the crucial detail of tempo and being able to push waves. He just has all the options in the world. Because let's say here, Vladi is here, and then Talia loops around this corner, and then Rakan just snaps on her. That's a potential play. Or they can just open straight bot and leash Atakan. It's a very, very tense situation to be in for KC, because they have no breathing room through the side lane because of their draft and some of the mistakes that they did. So now Talia hovered into mid because she wants to be there when Atakan is taken. Zinza is spotted, Georgiopun sees her on the crab and he's not rushing for the top wave. And now Yak is on vision again, which makes everything here super easy to play. Yak still on vision, Rakan is hovering. Even though Zinza is here, as long as he sees, Georgiopun can push his way for free and Poppy is chilling. This is the moment, I think, where you have one of those angles, right? It's like they pretend to walk out on the pink ward kill. If this Talia wall is placed a little bit better, here's Vladi Afriko, right? It's just once again the same thing. Rakan has a million options to play. Two guys are doing Drake here, two guys are making a play here, just because of the flow of information. The fact that they can push all these waves just makes such a world of difference. The same thing goes for Talia. She can push. They expect a very specific pattern of Talia hovering here, they're trying to defend the waves that are coming. Talia just said, okay, I'm gonna open bot side. Just let's make the game a little bit more dynamic. Nobody's on that neutral wave. Okay, I'm gonna open bot side. The enemy is trying to clear the vision that we placed on top side and look through the tempo. Here Sion's the same thing. It's like, should I contest the wave? Should I give the wave? Should I trap? Should I look to trade? What should I actually do? This play, he has no idea that it's coming. No idea that it's coming. The same way Rakan has options, Talia has options too. And Kana dies. Georgiopun instantly TP stop to just keep pushing. It's all about the economy. Finally, we have this game deciding moment where, of course, it's going to be highlighted how important position is, how important economy is, being able to farm all those waves deep, being able to push constantly and be dynamic in your play, really make every camp Zinza wants to take just a struggle. Every decision just being like, oh, there's a risk in everything that I do. Should I take the risk or should I bleed out? Should I take the risk? Should I bleed out? Eventually it leads to the point where you have big economical advantages, like here, 3 items Sivir, 3 items Talia, with of course Azika's arm guard. She farmed so much better. Just look at the gold differences here. You have 2k, you have fucking 3k in the mid wave. All of these things matter so much, because now as this Drake comes up, Supa gets Pry on the mid wave because he's gotten solo XP the entire games. He's level 16 on Supa with the Atakan buff as well. They're covering the jungle, Georgiopun is already poking. And even though KC have a nice teamfight comp, this just doesn't matter if you don't have position, either don't have gold. So when people tell you that, oh, this champion would counter this comp or be like really insane in the game, you really need to pay attention to the nuance of how that composition side lanes, how the duos and the trios kind of interact with each other. Are you going to be sitting under your tower the entire game? And if so, when push comes to shove and you're having a final fight in the game, will you be able to make something happen with a weaker position and also with a lot less resources? Sometimes it is true that you can get away with it, but in most cases it is not. Here we can slow down. I do think that CALSICO should have flashed the Rakan combo. Maybe he's looking expecting Lulu to maybe cancel it. Let's see how it looks. Lulu is a little bit late on the Rakan. Either way, GG. Alright, let's go to game 3. For starters, I would say that the drafts have similarities, right? You have tank v tank, you have engage in the jungle, you have Xayah maybe scaling a little bit better than the Koki, but Koki having a very good lane matchup here with the Nico. We have the mage v mage as well. Something that I wanted to discuss because I get asked this question so often is Road of Ages. Road of Ages is such a heavily discussed item, and I think this really highlights the strengths of Road of Ages. So we're going to have the lane phase as per usual. Orianna versus Victor, they're fighting against each other back and forth. Jojopyun buys a ruby crystal against the Darkseal. Already, the strength of Roa is the fact that the components to get there are insanely powerful for lane. Very powerful. The ruby crystal really adds up in terms of the strength. CS is relatively even. Here, of course, Vladi decides to base on the cannon wave. Jojopyun just decides to hard push it, which isn't the easiest thing. But here, Vladi is going to miss 3 melees, but he's going to get the cannon for the base that he just took. And now we have double ruby crystal and refillable. So already now, Jojopyun, in terms of laning in the isolated 1v1, he is so much stronger. He catches the full wave, which of course is super nice after pushing the cannon. We fast forward some more. Here in this spot, if he just aims the ult a little bit better, he could have burnt Vladi's flash, but I just compared these 2 health bars. I understand, of course, that he's level 6, but just compare the 2 health bars. This Orianna has 400 more health to play with, and of course the refillable. That's for pure lane strength in a matchup that can be evenish, and the trades are back and forth depending on how the lasers hits and if the QW lands. Of course, it's a skill matchup, but that HP by itself and the refillable is such a big advantage. We continue. There's also, like as mentioned before, Jojopyun pushed that cannon, which allowed him to just spend a lot more gold on the base. I think his judgment of being able to push that cannon, it was brilliant. I have to say, Jojopyun's laning is really good. Really good. So it continues. So Vladi is just suffering on cooldown. Doesn't help that the enemy has a global ult in Pantheon. Now with the Catalyst against, of course, the Vladi items, Catalyst is just insanely powerful. You get mana back if you trade. You get HP back when you use mana. As an item is just insanely OP. And Vladi is not going to be able to contest so hard, and Jojopyun can walk first into any area. And you can ask yourself, maybe if Vladi had Catalyst at this point, about Ruby Crystals, maybe he would have more traction in the game, maybe he would have more farm in the game, and that's the main calculation that occurs when people buy Road of Ages. It's so inherently OP in lane that the initiative it creates against someone that doesn't buy it is leverage that you can use for good. If you don't, obviously, if you get to the point where the enemy, like your HP is irrelevant, the Catalyst buy is irrelevant, obviously these are big pain points. It just means that you didn't leverage the power of the item. If the enemy guy that's just buying scaling items is popping off, that's him, punishing you in a sense. It's just greed versus strength. It's like short-term strength against long-term strength. Like, that's the point of comparison. But as things are going to pan out, Jojopyun is going to be, after lane phase, quite far ahead. And even at this point in time, you know, his Road of Ages purchased earlier because of, you know, the cheapness of it all. These things add up. And that's my little TED Talk on Road of Ages. First big moment in the game is this Drake 2 that Casey is lining up for. I really don't understand why they feel the need to play this. Because what's going to happen here is that Elioya manages to get his base in as he hovers for super. And he's going to be allowed to, of course, buy Sundered Sky. He can, of course, access a fight with Pantheon ult and he's just standing in Fog of War basing. But him buying Sundered Sky here, Road of Ages being finished, I think this just makes it into such a one-sided affair here for, Koi if it comes down to it. I don't really understand why Casey wanted to fight this because looking at Kalis, he's quite weak, half HP for the trade from Super, BF Sword, Road of Ages, and then they didn't see it yet, the Sundered Sky Elioya, but I feel like they need to guess it at this moment in time. With the gold that he had and him being Pantheon being allowed to base. Even this situation, I really like how MKoi is like soft contesting, and then Midwin just Orn Horns because the Pantheon ult is coming in. There we have the fight. Look how tanky Jojopyun is. It's so goofy. Road of Ages, Orianna, baby. In this particular sequence, you're going to notice that Koi is so much more in sync with Jojopyun and making sure that he gets the space to play. What Casey do often is they tend to kind of overgroup and look for plays that are not going to happen. Yike looking to gank on Ornn, like what's the point of this? Like I would be so much more focused on Vladdy's economy. We didn't have any good Vi ultimates yet, which is the main point of it. Pantheon is pressuring all lanes at the same time and farming his jungle as Yike is trying to find something desperate. Like, you know, the most broken part about Pantheon is the fact that he can be everywhere and farm his camps at the same time. So Yike going into bottom side, I feel like the game idea is so unclear for Casey always. It just seems like they don't know who to rally around here. Vladdy feels unsafe. He's baiting, of course, Jojopyun to push, but the enemy team is first in river and Pantheon can threaten. Here finally we have the Nico hovering for Vladdy to make sure he doesn't get dove, but it just means that MKoi just have initiative always. And even in this sequence, the Road of Ages against, of course, the Blackfire Torch. Blackfire Torch is an item that is benefited, of course, in AoE combat when you play against 5 players. It's like if you're not being hit, your HP can't be leveraged, and the damage you can do, of course, is a lot more impactful against bigger groups of units. But the Road of Ages here also makes Orianna so damn strong, because even in a world where, let's say, via Q ults her, maybe they don't have enough damage to even kill her on time before Pantheon comes and they get the Orianna shockwave off on the Vi and they one-shot her, you know. That's also a very important detail of why Road of Ages can be super strong. If you know that the side laning against the enemy champ is going to be extremely contested, you're going to create a scenario where you have initiative the whole game by being stronger on the wave. Here in the end, Orianna bases first after pushing that. I really like this move from MKoi in terms of how they reposition themselves, because right now Midwin is kind of suffering, but if Orianna can take over here, she's going to lane against somebody that didn't spend their gold yet because he's been here for a very long time. So Jojopyun taking the portals and rushing straight to bot is a very, very good tempo play, right? He got to push the wave and he saw Victor here, which means that if Victor is matching bot, Orianna's still going to be a lot faster. And if Midwin now contests this and keeps Kana in the lane, Orianna can take over and they can lane lock K'Sante for a very long time, punishing him. Let's keep this playing. As you can see here, Rel and Pantheon first into river. Yike is doing the defensive maneuver behind K'Sante, and Elioya gets the chunk onto Targamas. They kill him as well, feats of warfare, and even this position. Look, Jojopyun with the tempo advantage. K'Sante base so late. Vladdy is on mid-wave, not really farming anything, they're overgrouping, while of course Jojopyun is hitting the tower and they still have full control and Pantheon retreating back to actually clear his camps. I think this is the moment that is very disappointing for Koi, is the fact that they have the situation that is so winning because Ornn is pushing for free and bot lane is pushed. If Jojopyun walks away and they don't fight here, it's straight up game winning, like it's just a game winning position for them. They have gold to spend, and Casey is just begging for a fight to happen here. Begging. Because if not, then this is a disaster. Vladdy grouped for no damn reason, and he's going to be in big trouble. KC are just trying to find ways to put themselves in team fights. Sometimes their decisions to force objectives are very good, but often they're just bleeding farm because their lane assignments are very poor, and at the same time, they're not drafting for those conditions and playing for those conditions, being stronger on side. MKOI really got hit by, of course, the, international hammer. But MKOI take a fight that they don't need to take. No reason to rush into here. No reason to TP here. They can just take it easy. Use the Orianna ult for nothing. The Ornn ult also doesn't get big value. They managed to kill Yike, but the extension of this is just not good enough. Zaya's on mid wave in isolation, and it's just such a terrible fight. Game-losing fight here for MKOI. KC played mechanically well, especially Kana, I would say. Kalist in the end gets a kill here on Elioya as well, which is of course a big shutdown. And KC is back in the game, and the game position they were in. Like the game position here, when nobody is top and nobody's even close to being top, is disastrous. If there's no fight here, even if Orianna dies for this wave, it's like game losing the position. Here also something to highlight. I've been talking about the basically advantages. Here at this point in time, the advantage of their gold is not something that they are enjoying. I mentioned before how KC were good at leveraging their gold swings and their timers. Koi, on the contrary, not as much. Even though, there's a lot of gold to spend, Pantheon's advantage, Zaya's advantage is not something really... Orianna's advantage and Pantheon's advantage is not really something they're enjoying right now because they're not finishing any recipes. No one's ever said in comms, I got fated ashes, guys, we can win a team fight. No one's ever said that, Your big swing is when you finish recipes, old Dota word. Recipes basically, completed legendary items, mythic items, this is what you're looking for. Nobody's ever said, fated ashes, let's go, 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 go. It's never happened. So just Koi, fight selection, piss poor, really don't like it. Here on the other hand, I do think that their fight selection had potential, because looking at the item advantage of Orianna against Victor, it's right there. KC are the ones to leash. I think that item-wise, MKOI is in a good spot. KC are just trying to, chin check MKOI by looking how they react, depending on how far away they are against, of course, this Atakan objective. KC is a little bit smarter in terms of how they position around these objectives, because basically what Atakan creates with these two walls is that they create choke points that the enemy needs to enter through. The one leashing Atakan always wants to pull it away from the opposite wall, so when the enemy breaks through, this is where you look for the punish. Something that you see so often is that the team that takes and hits Atakan want to break through that choke themselves rather than inviting the enemy in. Let's keep this playing. Here's the Ornn ult. Look at the position now, right? How everything has shifted. KC is now backing and creating two choke points behind this wall. They're hard engaging now only on K'Sante. Nico is on a beautiful flank that they of course see because MKOI have vision, right? This is a red-pink ward. But they, in the end, MKOI funneled themselves through this spot. Very lucky that Kalist gets the Atakan and Alvaro is making a breakthrough when nobody can hit. Look how awkward this fight is for these two. They have no space to play in. The only spot to play in is here in this pocket, and they're playing in the same pocket. If you force your carries to play in the same pocket, the breakout engage becomes so damn easy. In reality, Koi should have played for the 50-50 smite and played for position on mid. Imagine if they did, then they would have been first to red, first to Raptors, and then they would have played with this Herald, take this tower, recall in Fog of War here, and then use tempo to retake. Because right now, KC's position is so far away from anything, so forcing this fight is completely unnecessary. Beautiful angle from Targamas, and as I mentioned at the beginning, it all comes down to, of course, how good, mechanically KC are in comparison to Koi. Koi's fight understanding, not the greatest. This is where KC win out. 27, another KC classic, gold swing. Pay attention to the items, no finished. Third item here on, of course, AD. Third item finished on Koki. Everyone's on the spot. Ornn catching a very, very, like a wave on his side of the map. So they just begin to hit the objective and they force. And this is, at this point, the KC Classic. K'Sante's very happy to fight objectives like these because he can stack the Q. And MKOI tried to force the engage. No value out of Orianna ult. Jojo Pyun with the TP is just not finding enough value here in this fight. Jojopyun chases Nico out, but he's just getting baited, and then in the end, they turn super beautifully. If you look at the position from the point of view of MKOI, they didn't have any, real vision to play with either. In the end, this game just simply gets decided off of this situation, where I think that the game is insanely winnable for, of course, Koi. But sadly, teamfight execution and smites is what keeps Koi away from the victory here. The fact that the enemy is allowed to enter like this, Alvaro playing from this angle and not pulling out the Drake, is amateur hour. Koi is doing a lot of good things in terms of the macro, but losing out like this and the game 1 draft, it was insanely costly. But I can see the details of how, of course, they're playing the macro game. I think Casey has a lot of work to do. Right now, I just see a team of individuals trying to make it out in a very brutal, just trying to make it in a very brutal world in terms of how they connect and how they draft around those ideas. I feel like they don't have the ideas of how they play their 2v2s, their 3v3s. They don't have an idea of this at all, which bleeds into how they draft too, because all they're really drafting is teamfight compositions, which makes them very predictable. They got away with the victory this time, but they are simply winning because they have good individual players. Koi had the better macro on the day, and their execution in the fights was just piss poor. If you ask me, in the long term, who is this going to benefit? I think macro concepts are much easier to learn than to, break new barriers individually. I think Jojopyun is looking good. I think Supa has high potential, Alvaro as well. But the inconsistencies of an Elioya mid-win in terms of the individual execution, that's where I'm concerned in terms of where the ceiling is. Because I think Koi is very impressive in the fact that they've played on their ceiling for the majority of spring, especially in playoffs. But I think a team like KC has a higher ceiling than that, but I do think KC currently, in terms of how they play, is far from it. All right, if you made it all the way to the end of the video, I appreciate that super much. Of course, KC won this game after this Drake situation because Hextech Soul is ridiculous, off of some beautiful Targamas engages. And in the end, it's a little bit of a back and forth, but it is what it is. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.